Welcome to the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared.
It is time to share your decision. Where are you headed to school?
Ooh, Alabama gets the #1 safety in the country. What was it about Alabama?
LSU Tigers, #1. Go Tigers.
And the next 4 years, I'm going to Denver University.
Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, 256-576-4977. Now, here's D Squared.
Welcome, everyone, to the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared on Blitz Sports Radio. I'm Drew DeArmond. Another great edition from 9 to 10 a.m. talking recruiting. Please give us a listen. Download our app on the Google Store, Blitz Sports Radio, or the Apple Store. Please give us a listen. Continue to support us. We've been about 2 months into the Blitz, and we're continuing to grow. We're very excited about the future of our streaming channel, and, of course, continue to support our sister station, ESPN 97.7 The Zone. I also co-host that daily radio program from 7 to 9 a.m. with Scott Tyson. So it's back-to-back for me. Talking ball from 7 to 9 a.m. We just talked some UAH basketball with John Schulman, as they've got a great event coming up on a Friday downtown. So please support that. And we had Jake Crane on from Crane & Company, part of the Real Daily Wire. Fast-growing show from 6:30 to 8 on YouTube. Outstanding content talking, national sports, but especially college football, which everyone knows and loves. And we're going to talk some more college recruiting today and football. We're going to be talking with one of the great people in the business if you're a football guy. And if you love the maroon and white of Mississippi State. And certainly we have a very passionate fan base here and alumni base in the city of Huntsville. A lot of Mississippi State grads, and there's no one more well-connected to Mississippi State football, recruiting, athletics than Steve Robertson. And he's going to join us for the first time in a few minutes on the Recruiting Blitz. He's been with us many times on Talking Ball, and he is now a distinguished author. He's in his latest is Dogpile, which is a book chronicling the Mississippi State National Championship from a couple of years ago, where they won the first one ever under Chris Lemonis in Mississippi State baseball. He has done an amazing job with his works, and now he's even behind a big-time, money maker, hopefully, for Mississippi State athletics, and that's Rock Vegas. We'll let him talk about that. That's going to be tomorrow night. If you follow him on Facebook and on social media, he's been putting that together for Mississippi State and helping them. And this is really an NIL venture as well to help Mississippi State athletics raise money. But there's no one that's more passionate about the maroon and white of Mississippi State than Steve Robertson. And, of course, he's going to have full coverage in Starkville on Saturday night. As Mississippi State is going to hook up with Texas A&M. And speaking of A&M, they've dotted some I's, crossed some T's. They got arguably the #1 defensive lineman in the country. He committed to Mississippi State, and he's the #1 in the state of Texas. There's no question about that. Mississippi State is their rank right now 42nd in recruiting, and that's not surprising because, again, when you look at Mississippi State, they, under Mike Leach, it's not so much – it's kind of like almost a Tom Osborne type situation in recruiting. Osborne recruited to a certain type of kid, to a certain type of offense when they were an option team at Nebraska. His recruiting classes were never ranked super high, but their program was strong because they knew the kind of kids they wanted to recruit. This is almost the antithesis as far as offensively. This is the air raid. Instead of running it, 95% of the time, they pass the ball 95% of the time. But Mike Leach is always looking for his kind of guys. And so he's doing that at Mississippi State, and like I said, they're ranked 42nd in recruiting. Texas A&M, they got a big boost. They're now up from 27 to 18 because of this commitment. They're up to 18 overall commitments in the class, I believe, or excuse me, 12. I'm sorry, 12 committed, and as we said, they're up to 18th. They go from 27 to 18, but there's 12 hard commitments in this class for Texas A&M, and their best overall player, he commits from Katy, Texas yesterday. He's the number 1 defensive lineman in the state of Texas, and really the number 1 player in Texas, and a top 10 kid nationally, and that's David Hicks. David Hicks committing to Texas A&M. It's kind of a little bit of a surprise because Oklahoma was thought to be the favorite, and I had been hearing for several weeks. I've been asked on this show, asked on Talking Ball, where's David Hicks going to go? Because Alabama was, on that short list. Never thought he was coming to Alabama, but I'd been hearing Oklahoma. I know Texas and Steve Sarkisian had tried to make some inroads, but really was hearing Oklahoma and Brent Venables and that staff, Ted Roof, that they were going to be able to bring in, David Hicks into this, Todd Bates coaching the D-line, formerly at Clemson. But then all of a sudden, even 30 minutes before the announcement, it was thought that, he was going to go to Oklahoma. Then miraculously, the check clears, and David Hicks goes to Texas A&M. And, unless you're living under a rock or, you're a propagandist, and, and some of their media are that cover Texas A&M. Most of them are not. Most of them are great guys, but there are propagandists that cover the Aggies. And people stick their head in the sand and try to deny that what's going on. But this is the world we live in. This is the NIL world. It's technically legal in the state of Texas right now. It's why NIL needs to be regulated. But they basically bought a recruiting class last year. I mean, it's the truth. Guys, certainly kids in Katy, Texas, some of them grow up wanting to be Aggies. So David Hicks going to Texas A&M, I mean, that's not a huge shock. Now, I mean, certainly it was a little surprising because it was thought he was leaning to Oklahoma, but this is the NIL world. But again, this kid grew up in Texas. It's not a complete shock he would stay in state and play for the Aggies. But when they're recruiting coast to coast, when they're getting kids to reclassify, and like Labarius Overton and come to Texas A&M, look, man, that's what's going on. It's NIL. They've been very aggressive, and they want to win. I give them credit for that. And they've become the bastion for defensive linemen. They've got tons of them. It's going to be interesting to see how the playing time hashes itself out. How do you develop? Are they developing these guys? Can you get them all to stay? Are they going to have roles? Because you can only play 3 and 4 at a time. But if you've got a very crowded room and guys aren't getting developed, I'm going to be really interested to see if Dirtneck, a.k.a. Jimbo, can manage this roster, because I'm not sure he can. I didn't think he did a very good job at Florida State. That's why they were in the ditch when he left. And so far, it's been very mediocre and Kevin Sumlin-like with the results, with the Aggies. And I'm going to ask Steve Robertson about the game coming up this weekend. Last year, one of the biggest wins for Mike Leach in year 2 in Starkville was winning in College Station. And now can they get back-to-back wins over the Aggies? They were certainly very disappointed that they did not win in Baton Rouge, Louisiana earlier this year against LSU. They led by double digits early in the first quarter, ended up losing that game 31-16. Huge win for Brian Kelly and a huge rally, and we talked to Matt Moscona on Talking Ball about that from ESPN 104.5 in Baton Rouge earlier this week, and he talked about how, look, when you're where LSU is, you expect to beat them every year. But this was a significant win because of the shape of the program that was left behind by Ed Ogeron. And, LSU was able to come back at home and get a very impressive win, over Mississippi State. But now Mississippi State, they're still 3-1, and the spread's growing. They're now, I checked this morning, I think they're a 4-point favorite over the Texas A&M Aggies. So that would be a huge win in Starkville for Mike Leach. It would get them to 4-1. Not surprisingly, with the way that they throw the ball and the veterans they have returning, Will Rogers is having an all-conference type season. I'll be the first to admit, and I'll wear it, that I picked Mississippi State at the bottom of the West. But it looks like that everyone in the media was right. A lot of them that voted Auburn, because Auburn looks like they have the worst roster. I also voted Ole Miss 6th, and Ole Miss has looked really good. But I want to see who the real Ole Miss is, and we'll find out on Saturday in Oxford against Kentucky. These are 2 really good teams. Arguably could be the second best teams in the East and the West East Kentucky, West Ole Miss. But we'll find out more about that, no question about it, when come Saturday at 11 a.m., on ESPN when we see these two teams take the field. Because, again, I just think right now I think we've been impressed with what Ole Miss has done, but they haven't played a great opponent because, trust me, Georgia Tech's certainly not that. Their out-of-conference slate has not been great. And certainly we've seen Kentucky get a good win at Florida, and I think Florida's a bowl team, but I don't think Florida's a great football team. But they did get a win on the road. So Kentucky has a better win right now, but a lot of people like Ole Miss and like them by double digits. So we will see what happens going forward with the Kentucky and Ole Miss game. I think that's probably the most intriguing game, but it's also going to be very intriguing with Mississippi State, because if Mississippi State can get to 4-1 with the way their schedule sets up, certainly Mike Leach in year 3, he always has done this wherever he's gone. We're talking about when you follow his career, what Mike Leach did at Washington State, and before that, what he did at Texas Tech. He's always able to do more with less. And Mississippi State, Dan Mullen had a great decade there, winningest coach in their history, but Mike Leach can also elevate Mississippi State's program, and he can do it without, and he's proven it wherever he's gone, not getting 5-star guys. So we're going to see if he can continue to do this and if he can pull off this win. And certainly if Texas A&M already has 2 losses, it's not going to be good, for the Aggies and their fans. And there's going to be a lot of unhappy people because there was a lot of expectations in Aggie land. They did sign and buy the #1 recruiting class in America last year. It was the highest ranked class ever. Then they lose at home to Appalachian State and really get manhandled in that game, yet they find a way somehow, even though it looked like for much of the game on the field they got outplayed by Arkansas and Jerry World in that game last week. They found a way to win 23-21. Now can they get some more revenge before they come to Tuscaloosa for what is going to be a huge game and probably one of the biggest national games of the week, especially if they win in Starkville. If they win in Starkville, they'll be 2-0 in the SEC. Certainly the loss hurts against Appalachian, but it doesn't factor into the conference race. And so Mississippi State's going to be trying to continue their winning ways, and they've already gone to Arizona and drilled a Pac-12 team. They're going to continue. They want to stay in the SEC West race, and certainly Texas A&M wants to stay unbeaten within the league. So those are 2 very intriguing matchups, Ole Miss and Kentucky and Mississippi State taking on the Texas A&M Aggies. So look forward to talking to Steve Robertson of Gene's Page. And as we said, he's an accomplished author, a best-selling author, one of the most prominent media members in the state of Mississippi and really in the Southeast, and a great rock aficionado. And we're going to talk to him about that. We're going to talk to him about the Rock Vegas event that he's put together that's going to benefit the city of Starkville and Mississippi State athletics. And that's in this NIL era, you can definitely step forward and do that, and that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to help his university and try to help Mississippi State. Certainly, his children have attended Mississippi State, and he's very, very connected there and just does a great job for Gene's Page. I mean, he's got the daily podcast, The Boneyard, that's very good. And, again, if you read his stuff, there's no one that's more well-versed in Mississippi State athletics than Steve Robertson. And I'm talking about football, men's and women's basketball, baseball, softball, the entirety of it. He does an outstanding job. He's a great class person who has a great story, and certainly we look forward to talking to Steve Robertson in a few minutes. But and also, too, we're going to continue to monitor recruiting for Auburn this coming weekend and the weather. And, again, thoughts and prayers go out to the state of Florida with what Hurricane Ian's doing to Fort Myers and Tampa in that area. It's just really, really sad that these folks are having to go through that. I've got friends in the media that live in that area and live in Florida and have a lot of friends and family that are having to evacuate and trying to stay safe. Certainly my good friend Mark McLeod, who we've had on our Saturday show at University Key on our sister station, 97.7 The Zone in the Sunshine State. Certainly John Frary and, of course, Brent Beard, all those folks that have meant so much to both of these shows, both Talking Ball and ESPN 97.7 The Zone, and also the Recruiting Blitz here on Blitz Sports Radio. We just pray for them. We pray everyone's going to be okay. And certainly, it's a very tough situation to be going through right now, no doubt about it. But again, we're going to continue to talk recruiting here, and we're going to see, and talk about these matchups. We've already talked earlier in the week. We talked about, the matchup with LSU and Auburn. We talked to Jeffrey Lee yesterday of Auburn Live on 3, their recruiting editor. He's a senior recruiting analyst for them. He gave us some names to watch for. And then I don't think, it's been talked about enough, but he talked about it with us yesterday as far as Auburn getting some visits from some big-time prospects and guys that, are still looking around. I know one is committed to Alabama, and he is Tony Mitchell, and he's supposed to visit Auburn yet again. He's been on multiple visits to Auburn, multiple visits to Texas A&M. I get asked about him a lot. He's going to be a nickel, I think, at Alabama, nickel safety. He plays at Thompson High School in Alabaster for outstanding coach Mark Freeman. Of course, Thompson's the 3-time defending 7A state champion. They got off to a tough start this year because they played the Buford Wolves. Buford maybe among the top 2 to 3 best teams in America, and then they played, Trent Dilfer's Lipscomb Academy Ball Club, and Trent Dilfer's been doing an amazing job over there, but they certainly have got it rolling now. They beat the defending 6A state champion Clay Chalkville Cougars under Coach Drew Gilmer. So congratulations to Thompson getting that big win last week. And this is a battle of potentially the best program in 7A, and they have been against the best program in 6A. And they went head-to-head, and it was a fist fight, and it was won by Thompson. So that was a great football game. And so we're going to continue to monitor where Tony Mitchell visits. Is Peter Woods locked into Clemson? So far it seems as though he is. Have not heard about him visiting another school, including Alabama, because Dabo Swinney likes the kid to commit and not visit other schools. But we'll continue to monitor his recruitment, no question about it. And we're going to continue to as we said, track Tony Mitchell. Tony Mitchell is slated to be in Auburn for the game with LSU, but the weather could play a factor. You heard Jeffrey talk about that. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's going to miss Auburn, and it won't be, a wet track. Hopefully it'll be guys like Reuben Bain from Miami Central High School. His brother's on the staff at Miami. Hopefully he'll show up in Auburn on the Plains and be able to get out of the state of Florida. It's very tragic right now, but come to Auburn, have a good time, take your mind off some things. Reuben Bain, also wanted by the University of Alabama. Mario Cristobal and the Canes were thought to be the favorite due to his ties to Miami, but the kid's visiting other schools, so we will see. We're going to track him as well. But I'll tell you what, we are definitely going to track Steve Robertson. He does a great job. We're going to go on a break. When we come back on the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared on Blitz Sports Radio, we're going to talk some Mississippi State football and recruiting with the man, Steve Robertson.
In 1982, Bob Baumhauer introduced Alabama to the Buffalo Wild Wing, and quite frankly, we've never been the same. Back then, it was Wings and Things in Tuscaloosa, but now, 40 years later, after 4 name changes, Baumhauer's Victory Grill is the #1 sports-themed restaurant in the state. Bob's Alabama Hot Chicken is something that has to be tried to believe, plus the new Bam Bam Chicken and the Louisiana-style Go Fish, a whitefish over rice topped with shrimp etouffee. And Baumhauer's is fighting inflation with some new affordable favorites. Visit Baumhauer's on the South Parkway today. Tom Abraham here for my friend Brian Hamaker and his team at North Alabama Mortgage. Look, buying a home is the biggest purchase you will make in your life, and it can be a bit intimidating, so you want people that can help walk you through the mortgage process and get you the best deal possible. That's what North Alabama Mortgage does, and they do it in Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida, from first-time purchases to refis, conventional, VA, FHA, and USDA loans. They have the solution at North Alabama Mortgage. Visit NorthAlabamaMortgage.com to learn more. That's NorthAlabamaMortgage.com. What's better than Valley Equipment Rental? 2 Valley Equipment Rentals, and that's just what we have now. The original on the South Memorial Parkway between Drake and Airport Road, and their second location on North Memorial Parkway just north of Winchester Road. Valley Equipment is locally owned and has more skid steers, excavators, and lifts than anyone in the area, plus all the small tools that you need to get the job done like a pro. And if you are a pro, you need to check out the new North location now because Valley Equipment has what you need. Learn more at valleyequipmentrents.com.
Are you tired of chasing a roofing contractor to show up on time, or even show up at all? I'm Sam Fleming with Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Our motto at Fleming Roofing is we show up. Our goal at Fleming Roofing is to provide the reliable customer service that you deserve, and we have the resources to meet all of your roofing needs, residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. We are manufacturer certified for roof coatings, single-ply membranes, and asphalt shingles. Whenever you need a roofing professional you can count on, call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We are committed to finding the solution that meets your needs. We don't have quotas or heavy-handed sales tactics. Fleming Roofing, we have expert experience. We show up. Free estimates, residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. Check us out at FlemingHSV.com. FlemingHSV.com. When you need a quick response, it's Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
Hey everyone. Let's all stop what we're doing right now and take a moment. That felt good, huh? Just like that, we had a nice special sort of moment together. Of course, they don't all need to be quiet moments to be special. They could be loud moments, goofy moments, sporty moments, dorky moments. Moments where we talk or walk or just hang out. It doesn't really matter. They all count. Because every time dads like us take a moment like that to spend with our kids, well, it's pretty momentous. Sounds like somebody agrees. So let's take a moment to make a moment. Today, call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared here on Blitz Sports Radio. And we've got a special guest. He's been with us many times on Talking Ball, as we said, on our sister station on ESPN 97.7 The Zone. And we've promoted his works, and he's become a best-selling author in the state of Mississippi. Of course, he's written Flim Flam, which was a book that detailed the Hugh Freeze's time at Ole Miss. He's also written Alpha Dogs and Stark Villains, and even a poetry book, Blooms of Oleander, and now Dogpile, his latest work, which is, of course, chronicling the Mississippi State National Championship, the first in school history in any sport for Chris Lamonis 2 years ago in baseball. It's become a bestseller. He's toured the state of Mississippi. He's become extremely popular. He's also an outstanding speaker. He has a great story. He shares his testimony with many, and we're honored to have him on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now to talk some Mississippi State football. They have a huge game in Starkville at Davis Wade Stadium against the Texas A&M Aggies, who they beat last year. He's going to have full coverage of that for Gene's Page, which he has been with Gene's Page and part of 24/7 Sports. He's been with that website with Gene Swindle since 2001. And now he's got a huge event that he's also been a part of that's going to rock Starkville tomorrow night, and that is Steve Robertson. Steve, we really appreciate the time. I know you're very busy, and we thank you, as always, for joining us. How are you this morning?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I can barely hear you guys, but I'm doing great.
Okay, we'll try to fix that. Sorry that we'll fix the audio there. Sorry you can barely hear us, but we'll fix that, Steve. But I got to tell you, first of all, I wanted you to talk about the Rock Vegas events you've put together. I've been following it on social media. I know you're very passionate about Mississippi State, and of course, in these NIL days, this is a different world. You can put together things like this. You're very passionate also about music. You're very you're upfront and frank about that. And just talk about this event, though, that's really going to be a landmark one that's hopefully going to become a yearly event now in Starkville.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a chance for me to kind of combine my two greatest passions outside of my family, and that's Mississippi State athletics and rock music. And it's one of these things where I was just kind of sitting around one day, and I was like, what can I do to help? Number one, what can I do to help the NIL initiative? But what can I do to help Starkville? What can I do to help the rock scene in Mississippi? And I'd been to some shows, and I'd been to Memphis and saw my friends in Faster Pussycat with LA Guns, and ran into some friends of mine from Lillian Axe. And then I went to Lillian Axe show in Mandeville to kick off the new tour. And on the way home, I said, you know what, I'm just going to bring these guys to Starkville. And I woke up Monday morning and I put on Facebook, it's time to make Mississippi rock again. And by the end of the day, I had booked a venue and booked 3 bands and already lined up a couple sponsors. And the next thing you know, we're off and running. And then now it's the day before the show. And so we're going to have the first annual Rock Vegas event. We've already raised over $23,000 from Mississippi State's NIL efforts. And, my goal was 25, and we'll easily surpass that. And, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a drop in the bucket, but, it's still a pretty big bucket out there. And really it's just about bringing awareness to NIL. And I'm not making a dime. In fact, I'm using some of my own money to help facilitate the show, but I'm excited about it. And, I'm bringing a couple of young upcoming Mississippi bands that are outstanding, and they're going to share the stage with Lillian Axe, of course, who was kind of the godfathers of the Mississippi rock scene when I was a teenager.
Yeah, and it's great stuff, too. I mean, it just shows the passion that you have for rock music and for Mississippi State University. And as you said, NIL, this is a new world, and you're certainly trying to help Mississippi State athletics. And, and from what I understand, the show is sold out.
Yeah, the show sold out on Monday, and we probably could have sold another 150 tickets since then. It's funny how that works. You tell everybody for a month, hey, this thing is going to sell out. This thing is going to sell out. And then it's like, hey, well, I didn't get my tickets. Well, maybe show up the day of the show and we'll see what we can do. But one of the coolest things about all of this is there have been about 100 tickets that were purchased by MSU alumni and then donated back to me to give the students. And so we used those tickets, and the Reflector, which is the student newspaper staff, of course I'm a journalist. And so to encourage those young people, we gave tickets to each member of the student newspaper staff. And then we gave some to the DG sorority. My sister was a DG at State. And then yesterday I opened up with kind of the remaining tickets for just general students. It was like, hey, if you're a fan of rock music, you want to come to the show, meet me out on the drill field. And we handed those tickets out. And so not only are we going to have a sellout show, we're going to have a capacity crowd. It's going to be a good night. I was up at the venue last night, and they were putting lights up together, and Lillian's bringing this elaborate stage set in. So it's not like this band's going to get up in a bar and play on a stage. I mean, this is a major production that we're doing just kind of at a small venue.
Yeah, it really is. It's going to be an awesome event. And then the football game on Saturday. So it's going to be a huge weekend in Starkville and a great opportunity. I thought it was maybe Mike Leach's biggest win last year when they went to Texas A&M and won that game, and now they've got a chance to have a 2-game winning streak. It's interesting too. I've been watching the line. It was about 1.5 too early, 2.5. It's grown to 4. So there's a lot of people that think Mississippi State's got a great chance to win this game Saturday night in Davis-Wade Stadium.
Well, contrary to the belief of many in the Southeastern Conference football media, Mississippi State has won 5 of the last 8 against Texas A&M.
Good point.
And I think a lot of people don't know that. And I don't know why that is. I mean, the information's right there and easily available to you. State actually leads the all-time series against Texas A&M. But, to read the preseason prognostications, Texas A&M is leaps and bounds better than Mississippi State. And that's simply true. And so yeah, I think there's a lot of confidence State can win this game just because of the fact of the State's recent success. But I just don't think A&M I don't think State's a good matchup for A&M. Now, I think, kind of where the cow eats the cabbage is going to be, what does State do against that red zone defense of Texas A&M? And that's the big issue there. It's like, that A&M's a team that struggles to score, but they don't give you an awful lot. They really shut you down when things get a little bit constricted, make you kick field goals. So State's got to convert those opportunities into touchdowns. And I do believe because of A&M struggles on offense, and you lose Anaya Smith for the year, if State can get some early separation in this game, I think State's going to win the game and probably be able to relax a little bit. But that's easier said than done.
And what have you seen out of State so far? I know it seemed like a missed opportunity. They get off to a great start in Baton Rouge, and then weren't able to finish that game. And a lot of it was self-inflicted, though, in some turnovers.
Well, and they had 7 drops in the game, and 3
drop
of them
passes,
on third
exactly.
downs that were wide open. Yeah, I mean, it's like, and then you're up 16-10, and you muff that punt inside the 10, and you basically gift them the ball game there. And State had their opportunities, and I think most people beginning of the year said, okay, if State can be 3-1 after 4, we'll be happy. But nobody's happy because they felt like they should have won that game with LSU, and that could have been the difference between a good season and a great season, right? I mean, you get that big first SEC win, and then all of a sudden you're 4-0 playing a 3-1 Texas A&M team. This might have been a CBS game. I mean, it's like it was a missed opportunity and a chance to take a step forward. And I think now people say, okay, well, all right, well, this is a similar situation. And it's a team that you've had some success against, but State wins this one with Arkansas coming to town next week, and I think you look at this. This is the defining stretch in the schedule, and Arkansas, of course, plays Alabama this week, and Alabama's known as the great tenderizer in the Southeastern Conference. Everybody loves playing a team after they played Alabama. So it sets up well for State, but they have to take advantage.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And how have you seen this program progress? Because I talked to Matt Wyatt during the summer, and he made me aware of something that, just like you made us aware that, and people haven't paid attention, that really Mississippi State has controlled the series with Texas A&M since they came to the SEC. One thing that I knew they had some experience coming back, but they had the most experience coming back in the SEC. That's why I'll wear it. I freely blew it. I wasn't sure. And I thought, first of all, let me preface it by saying I thought every team in the SEC West would be a bowl team. But I kept thinking, okay, Alabama, and then 2 through 7, the rest, everybody was kind of in just a wide. I couldn't really decide who was going to finish 2nd to 7th. Anybody could, and I still believe that. I picked Mississippi State last in the West, but it was to my detriment because I didn't fully realize how much experience they had returning on the squad.
Yeah, I think the second most experienced team in the Southeastern Conference. I think the only team that has more upperclassmen is South Carolina, which is interesting, right?
Yeah,
but,
right.
Yeah, and I think sitting around Starkville here, I think when the preseason picks came out, I think we all kind of snickered a little bit and said, yeah, there's some things these guys don't know. But I think the reality of it is when you have a veteran quarterback, a guy that's been through the wars for a couple of years, you can narrow the talent differential with experience. And I think that's where State maybe has a chance this year to really put together a good year. And at this point, the talking's over, right? I mean, now it's the teams are on the field, and we'll see how things go. But I think defensively, I expected them to be really good. I think they have the potential to be elite. They haven't shown that yet. They go through some stretches, though. I mean, like Memphis in the first half, I think, had like 20 yards, and then you look at what Arizona did. I mean, it's like this is a team that clearly is coached well, but how do they handle the adjustments there in the second half? I mean, with 2 minutes to go in the first half at LSU, it's a 13-0 ball game. So defensively, I think this team has been really good, but I think there's more left in the tank. And in order for them to kind of get to where they need to go, they're going to have to exhaust those resources.
Well, and I think it's been significant, too, because he did a great job from year one forward, but that Mike Leach has been able to hold on to Zach Arnett and keep him in Starkville. Yeah,
that's significant because that very first year, you remember everybody in the country mentioned him as a potential candidate. And he actually did interview with LSU, and it wasn't a good fit. And it's like a lot of people say, well, LSU passed on him. Well, that's not true. That's just the LSU Homer media trying to save face in the deal. But at the end of the day, it wasn't a great fit. But Arnett and Orgeron did talk about it. But, Ed's a guy that really loves that 4-3 alignment, and Zach's a guy that runs 3-3-5. And so, it's not a situation where anybody should walk away from that feeling embarrassed because somebody got turned down. It just wasn't a good fit for either side, and that's the reality of life. That's why you interview people, right? I mean, you don't offer the job to everybody you talk to. And so, Arnett, they signed a contract extension with him in the middle of the season that year, and much of that credit goes to John Cohen. And so people are going to have to pay a buyout in excess of $2 million to hire Zach Arnett. And then Zach re-upped again last year. Zach and his family like it here. I think Zach's probably in a situation now where he's probably worked himself in contention to maybe for a G5 head coaching job at some point in the not-so-distant future.
That's a great point. We're talking to Steve Robertson, Gene's Page, part of 24/7 Sports, and as we said, such an accomplished author. His latest work, Dogpile, is a look at the journey for Mississippi State baseball, making history a couple years ago as they win the national championship under Chris Lemonis. Of course, we know what a rich tradition Mississippi State baseball has, and now what Mike Leach is trying to build at Mississippi State. And of course, we talk a lot of recruiting on this show, Steve, and I made this analogy. I don't necessarily look at rankings when I look at a Mike Leach recruiting class, just like I really didn't when Tom Osborne had it rolling in Nebraska, because Tom Osborne was recruiting to a specific style of offense and a specific style of player. I think Mike Leach does the same thing. He wants to find his guys. He's the Wes Welkers of the world, maybe that are flying under the radar that fit his system. So I don't really focus most on do they have a top 20 recruiting class or not. I just focus on the guys he wants, the guy that fit his system. Will Rogers is one of those guys. He recruited him, first freshman quarterback really to ever start for him, and he's having an amazing career in Starkville. But how do you kind of track recruiting for Mike Leach?
Well, I kind of err on the side of caution because, Leach, when he was at Texas Tech and Washington State, had difficulty putting together a top 25 class. He did that at Mississippi State. That's the thing you look at is what can Leach do when the proximity to big-time players is greater. When he has an opportunity to get in there, there's so many great players in the Mississippi State recruiting footprint. You can go from the I-20 corridor across into North Louisiana, and you go over to Birmingham, and, you go up to Memphis and dip into Nashville. I mean, there's so many great players that he hadn't had access to before. And so I think that's what really encourages people is look at what he's done with less. What can he do with a little bit more? Granted, the level of competition is much greater in the Southeastern Conference. But Mississippi State historically is going to be ranked between 25 and 35 most years. And it's funny how that happens. I think I've been in this industry a long time, and I think there are a lot of people, too, that I don't think they watch film. And I may get in trouble for this, but that's okay. I'll say it. But I think there are a lot of people that are offer counters, and they think, okay, well, this kid's got 50 offers, so he must be a 4-star, maybe a borderline 5-star. And then if he commits to a blue blood program, well, then all of a sudden that ranking is validated. If he doesn't, like say he commits to a Mississippi State or an Arkansas or somebody like that, well, the next thing you know, the ranking starts dropping. It's funny how that happens. And so, I don't rank kids based on where they're going. I rank kids on how I think they are as projected college football players. And I think that's how everybody should do it. And the thing that I always get back to, because, Drew, I'm an old guy. I'm from the 1900s, right? I think you actually have to watch kids play in order to rank them as players. I know that's a novel concept, but there's a lot of people that just get out here and say, oh, well, he's going to be going to Alabama, so he's got to be a 5-star kid. As great as Nick Saban is, Nick misses on some kids too, which is one of the reasons they go into the transfer portal. And that's in no way a criticism. That's just the reality of life, because predicting future human performance is probably the most inexact science we have. But it's funny how those rankings work. It's like, why is State always 25 to 35? You mean to tell me that just every so often State couldn't have a top 20 class? I mean, it's like, I'm not alleging conspiracies. I'm alleging laziness and incompetence at times because I don't think people actually evaluate players. I think they evaluate recruiting profiles, and they think, okay, well, this is how the pieces should fit together, and that's just not always the case.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. And what are your impressions early of this recruiting class? I know it's ranked 42nd in 24/7 Sports, and but of course there's a long way to go till December. What's the early impression of some of these kids? I know you've seen some of them as well that he has committed.
Well, here's the thing. In order for State to ever put together a really great recruiting class, it's got to be a really great year in State. And it's not this year. It's a good year in State. Don't get me wrong. There's some really intriguing players, but it's not a great year in State. Now, this is a class that I think that has a lot of depth. There's some guys that will sign with the Power 5, but I think there's not a lot of headliners. There's no Jeff Simmons or A.J. Brown or D.K. Metcalf. There's not that guy this year. I mean, I think, Aiden Williams, a really good player. Get Perkins is committed to Ole Miss. I love his game. I think Ty Jones is an outstanding player. He's committed to Mississippi State. I think the best player in the state is probably Isaac Smith from Mitawamba Agricultural High School. I think he is a guy that is a future NFL guy, and he is a guy that is playing his natural position in high school, so it'll be an easy transition when he gets to college. This is an NFL guy. if he stays healthy and works hard, he will go to the National Football League. And so, the state's got to get guys like that. You got to keep those guys in state. But, I like the class. I mean, of course, here's the thing. When you go into a place like Alabama, and you know how fertile the recruiting territory is there.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to take the next step, you got to go beat Alabama and Auburn on a kid they really want. And that's just been difficult for Mississippi State to do. Occasionally, maybe you'll go into Hoover and you get a kid, maybe he's got a connection to your program, whatever. But, in order for State to catch the Alabamas and LSUs in this conference on the field, you got to start catching them on the recruiting side. And so, I think State's got to recruit a little bit better, because I think if you keep doing what you've always done, you get what you've always got. But, it's not a great year in State, and so I think this class will struggle to be top 25. I think maybe you get into the 20s, especially if you get a guy like Isaac Smith. But the reality of the Mississippi State recruiting footprint is the State can't miss on evaluations. You got to go get guys that can be developed. And maybe they're not 4- or 5-star guys when they sign with you, but maybe they leave as 4- and 5-star type guys.
Well, and then as you said, Coach Leach is going to be exposed to better players in the Southeast. The Mississippi State's historically always done well signing junior college players and supplementing them. Certainly Coach Sherrill did that and really put some hurts on Alabama and Auburn during his era there. Is Leach going to continue to supplement the program with junior college players? And how aggressive will he be in the transfer portal? I know Lane Kiffin has been extremely aggressive.
It's been an interesting this discussion, right? I mean, it's like junior college recruiting in many respects has been mitigated tremendously by the portal because, and I don't mean this in a negative way. I mean, my son played junior college baseball, but there's a reason guys are in JUCO, and that doesn't mean that they can't overcome that. I mean, sometimes they just need a little more seasoning. Sometimes they just need some reps. Sometimes they need to get in the right system. Like a guy like Caleb Ducking is a junior college success story. Caleb Ducking played at South Delta High School in Rolling Fork, Mississippi, and then he was a big, long receiver then. He was just underutilized. And he goes to junior college, and the only option he had was Holmes County Community College, and he's a wide receiver, and they're running in triple option. And so when Joe Moorhead offered him a scholarship, he had one catch in his junior college career, one. And now you look at him, he's second in the nation in touchdown receptions. I mean, so that's a junior college success story. So there is some talent available to you there, but I think now people are like, you know what, I'd rather go get that G5 guy or that Power 5 2-deep guy that's in the portal because they know what Division I football is like. There's a big adjustment going from junior college to Division I football. That's just the reality of life. And so I think junior college recruiting kind of takes a little bit of a shot here because of the portal. And Leach is not a guy that's going to go all out in the portal. And you look at what Lane Kiffin's done, and I'm not going to be critical of it because we don't know yet. You know what I'm saying? We don't know how this is all going to work. We're all just kind of figuring this thing out. But Leach has just kind of used the portal to supplement where they've got some talent deficiencies. It looks like Lane's just kind of ready to throw caution to the wind and go get kind of be the Oakland Raiders. Go get all these cast-offs from other programs or whatever. But it'll be interesting to see in the next couple of years who's right. And maybe they're both right. Maybe that's interesting too. It's easy to look at other people, and especially your rival school, and say, well, that's a joke. We don't know if it's going to work. But it may work. And I think that's the thing about the portal that is kind of interesting and exciting at the same time is that we're learning together. There's no tried and true method at this point. So we'll see.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see, no doubt. And I know, as far as I know, looking at Mississippi State's class, as we said, you talked to us about, that it's not a great year, but it's a good year in the state of Mississippi. They've got 15 committed. I know they can oversign this year. In your mind, what's a number for Mike Leach? How many do you think he'll bring out? I'm sure at least 25.
Oh, yeah, at least 25. I would say closer to maybe 27 or 28, depending on attrition. That's the thing now with the transfer portal. And of course, now next year we'll have a little more, a little more parameters to this thing with the transfer windows, which I think are absolutely smart. It just gives coaches need to know who's on their team. It's like today I go coach a kid. Maybe I have to lean into him a little bit. He gets mad, goes and gets in the portal. I mean that's not how life works, Drew.
That
does not work anywhere else in life. But we've made it possible for that to happen in college. And so now you put these parameters on this, and you get these transfer windows, and, I think it's good for everybody. You get through the semester, you decide you want to go, you go. And that's unlimited. It's unfettered, But, teaching kids to quit in the middle of the year, I mean, come on. I mean, that's just not how life works. Not for successful people. You got to learn to push through adversity, And so I think that's the thing too that kind of helps with all of this. Is now we've experimented with the Wild Wild West, and we realize now we got to have some law. We got to have some, rules and things that we go through. And so I think that's an important part of it. But I think Leach and those guys will continue to operate as they've always done. But I know that deep down he likes to sign high school guys or guys with multiple years available from the portal to give them time to develop and kind of acclimate to the Mississippi State culture.
Finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, because there's no one that knows Mississippi State baseball better than you. Certainly a disappointing year for Chris Lemonis last year. They looked to bounce back, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about another young man. We've had several from our community go to Mississippi State. Christian McLeod now with the Minnesota Twins. Drew Talley from Huntsville High, who from via Wallace State Community College in Memphis finished his career of 2 years at Mississippi State, and now we have Slade Alford there. What kind of year do you expect him to have? Is he going to have a much bigger role on this year's squad? Because I look at him as a supreme talent and a guy that I think in the future is a professional baseball player. But what is his future at Mississippi State?
Yeah, we see it the same way, Drew. And Slate had a huge summer. I mean, huge. Made the All-Star team, with his summer league team. And, I think he is the starting third baseman day one. And Cameron James, last year, Cam was a starter, and Cam told me, he goes, man, there's some things this kid can do defensively that I can't. And, of course, Cam James is a pro baseball player now. And so
right.
The guys love Slate. And, he had a big tank last year, and I think last year it was just kind of adjusting to college-level pitching, and I think that he's done that now, and I expect a big year from him. I think there are a lot of people in the Southeastern Conference that are going to be surprised at how good he is. I think that he's a guy last year that maybe could have played a little bit more, but I don't think you rush him out there and crush his confidence before he's ready. But I think what you saw him do this summer tells you that he is ready to go. We're really excited about him, and I tell you, State has worked that baseball portal really hard, and when I go speak, all these people bring up the transfer portal, and they say, I don't like the transfer portal. I said, well, if you like baseball, you need to like it, because Mississippi State was able to flip their roster last year, and instead of it being a 2 or 3 year rebuild, now you're right back to where you were. Now you're a team that's going to be contending to host because State worked the portal. And I would venture to say maybe State had the number 2 portal class in the country, maybe behind LSU because LSU got Paul Skeens from Air Force. But State really loaded up in the portal and got some guys that have done exceptionally well in the fall. And so there's a lot of optimism about State getting right back. I don't think it's a situation where, it's got to be a slow build and burn. I think State's going to be right back in the mix. And there's going to be this in 4 months. We're going to be talking about State potentially hosting a regional.
Well, I got to tell you, there is the apex of college baseball right now with State 2 years ago, Ole Miss this past year, and then what Southern Miss does. Just an unbelievable bunch of college baseball programs in that state and a lot of talent, and not to mention just the outstanding coaching. And Chris Lemonis does a great job, and you do a great job covering Mississippi State, and we appreciate your time, and we congratulate you on the success of Rock Vegas. We know it's going to be a great show, and, of course, on all the success as an author. But let everybody know how to follow your coverage over at Gene's page, sir.
Yep, of course, we're genespage.com, the 247 Sports affiliate for Mississippi State. And I'm on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R. Well, we appreciate the time, Drew. You guys take care.
Thank you, Steve. We really appreciate it. We're going to go on a break, and we're going to wrap up this edition of the Recruiting Blitz. Really appreciate Steve Robertson's time and his insight into Mississippi State recruiting and athletics.
The Blitz has been called.
To fasten your seatbelt, insert the metal fittings and tighten the strap. And in the event of a sudden rush of cabin generosity, your seat cushion can be used to grant wishes. How? By donating your airline miles to Make-A-Wish. Why? Because your frequent flyer account is stuffed as fat as your carry-on. And just like the workout clothes you packed, you're never going to use all those miles. But if you donate some to Make-A-Wish, you can give wishes wings and put sick kids right where you're sitting now. No, not in seats to Newark. Seats to fun family places, breaks from treatments and doctor visits and hospital stays, wishes to feel better, and lots of times get better too. Push your call buttons if you feel me. Alrighty then, well, once we reach cruising altitude, you can use your electronic device to make your pledge of miles or money to Make-A-Wish at givewisheswings.org. That's givewisheswings.org. And then move about the cabin with pride, knowing that you've made a huge difference in the life of a Make-A-Wish kid, because wishes work wonders, people.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps demonstrate their commitment to defend the American way of life. Since 1775, we have served our nation as a force in readiness. From combat operations to humanitarian assistance in every corner of the world. No matter where the mission takes us today, or wherever our country needs us tomorrow, we always remember the land we call home. As Marines, we take a stand for each other, for our nation, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
For college football fans, Saturday in the fall means game day. But now passionate fans everywhere can experience game day every day at the new College Football Hall of Fame and Chick-fil-A fan experience, now open in downtown Atlanta. The College Football Hall of Fame features over 30,000 square feet of interactive exhibits, putting fans closer to the game than ever before, including a 3-story helmet wall displaying every college football team helmet, kick field goals on a 45-yard long indoor football field, sing your favorite team's fight song in a karaoke challenge, and have your face painted digitally through one of the many interactive exhibits. Whether you're a die-hard college football fan or a mom looking for a fun family outing, you'll find it all at the College Football Hall of Fame and Chick-fil-A fan experience. Get your tickets today by calling 404-880-4800 or visiting cfbhall.com.
This is Wes Neighbors talking to Chris Haygood of Bob Wallace Appliance. Chris, what sets you apart from other appliance dealerships?
Wes, these appliances are going into the most used room in your house, your kitchen. The way we have these appliances displayed, it's easy for you to visualize how they'll look in your home. Wes, what sets us apart is the people. They're well trained. In fact, they live and breathe these appliances. And if you need service, you'll really appreciate our parts department.
Contact Bob Wallace Appliance at 256-533-2121.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared. I'm Drew DeArmond. Big thanks to Steve Robertson. No one better when it covers to covering the maroon and white. GenesPage.com, part of 24/7 Sports, talking some Mississippi State recruiting with us. A huge weekend for them as they're going to welcome some great players to Starkville, Mississippi, to see them take on the Texas A&M Aggies. As it'll be, and as you know, Steve pointed out, and it should be pointed out and rightly, mentioned, is Mississippi State has led the series with Texas A&M since they came into the league. Texas A&M likes to fashion themselves as a big-time program, and they had a great recruiting class last year, but their success has really not met the expectations so far in the SEC. We'll see if they can continue to climb, but so far it has not. That game will be 3 o'clock on the SEC network as Mississippi State in Davis Wade Stadium will host the Texas A&M Aggies and Dirt Neck Jimbo Fisher. So we will be following and monitoring that game and the recruiting storylines. As you heard Steve say, it's a good, not great year within the state of Mississippi, so he expects their recruiting class to rank between 25 and 35 in the country. Some strong things to say about Slade Alford, though. I enjoyed hearing that. The former Bob Jones Patriot, outstanding prospect, who played for good friend Jared Smith. That's one of the best programs in the state of Alabama, and it looks like Slade's on a definite trajectory to be a great player in the SEC. And what that means is down the road a high draft pick, down the road a chance to be a pro. We've already had a couple of guys from our community, as we said. Drew Talley had a very solid career at Mississippi State. Christian McLeod from Huntsville High helped them win a national championship, 5th-round pick, I believe, now with the Minnesota Twins. So we've had some guys, Tanner Allen last year from Mobile, a great player. They've had some outstanding talent from our state, no doubt about it. that were a big part of Mississippi State baseball, that were from the Yellowhammer State, and they're going to continue to recruit well here. I mean, Mississippi State's one of the best baseball programs historically, in collegiate baseball. They take it very seriously. They've got a beautiful place to play, at Duty Noble Field, and so they're always going to be an elite program. They had a little bit of a down year due to some injuries last year, but as you heard Steve say, they had maybe LSU and Mississippi State had the best portal classes to flip their roster, and Mississippi State's going to be much, much better, and you expect them to get back to, contending for hosting regionals and getting to Omaha and winning a national championship, which, Will Bednar and all those guys did, and Tanner Allen a couple of years ago. It was a great run for Mississippi State, getting a chance to win a national championship, and really they had done everything but do that under Ron Polk. So great conversation covering Mississippi State. We're going to talk some Arkansas with Curtis Wilkerson tomorrow, but don't forget, later this afternoon, the Afternoon Blitz with Captain Cool, John Abraham, the Bandyman, Bailey Lowry, Smokey Mike Concho. Download our app at the Google Store or the Apple Store, Blitz Sports Radio, continuing to support us and enjoy the Afternoon Blitz later today. And then I'll be back tomorrow from 9 to 10 a.m. to talk some Arkansas ahead of this huge matchup as they're hosting Alabama. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm D-Squared Rudy Armand. We'll talk to you Friday.